Are we live streaming? Okay, good. Sorry. Double checking. If you saw last week, you know that I'm not very good at doing that myself. If you have to watch, if you decide you want to after today's talk, because I will refer back to last week, it is recorded sideways. So if you just turn your phone, it's just like it was normal. Just the words are going to be going, because it is captioned, so it'll be going this way. So you kind of have to, if you want to read it, if you miss something. But anyway, it's all good. We're just going with the flow all the time. I will tell you, this year of trying to be available online, which is great because a couple of ladies back here said they found us on Facebook. That's wonderful. But technology and learning, and you know how technology is, even if you're just trying to type an email, sometimes everything just goes away. So we've had some things like that. I keep threatening to do a blooper reel so that you all who weren't with us every week can see what we managed to get our way through. Because it was fun, and it was, well, I will just tell you, it was humbling. Let me just put it that way. Many, many days. So today my talk is Embrace Your Power. You are power. It is one of our 12 spiritual gifts, as we describe in Unity. But a lot of us didn't grow up knowing that we were the power and the presence of God expressing in this human form. And we just need to be reminded of it. But we've been talking, we started last week, talking about the 5 basic Unity principles. And I keep doing this like you're a classroom of children, but it really helps. We use the cryptic, God is, I am, I think, I pray, I do. If anybody asks you, what's that Unity place all about, you can just use your fingers behind your back and say, God is, I am, I think, I pray, I do. So it's easy to remember God is everywhere present. I am an expression of God. I think, my thoughts are creative. I pray because I understand the power that's alive within me as an expression of God. And I meditate, and I do, I live truth. We live consciously. That's our whole goal, and that's our mission here. So last week, this is basically what I call, I don't know if anybody else in Unity calls it this, but it's a formula for transformation. If you can get your mind and your heart around these 5 basic principles, which are universal truths, they're not unique to Unity. That's why Unity is called Unity. Charles Fillmore literally brought together leaders from 12 major religions, and they worked cooperatively to find the common threads. That's why when you come to Unity, if your background is nothing, even if you're an atheist and you don't even believe in God, you can believe in universal truth. It doesn't have, it's scientific. You don't have to be spiritual to believe in the 5 principles. You can have a Muslim background, and you can come and find a thread of truth. You can have a Catholic background, or for myself, a Southern Baptist background. You can find that thread of truth regardless. So that's why I call it a formula for transformation. Because when you understand these steps, these principles, build on one another as if they were steps, there's nothing in your life that you can't change for the better because of these very truths. So last week we started with God is, I am. Those are pretty inseparable because we've talked about how God is everywhere present. We say it every single week, and it's absolute good. That energy in the universe is absolutely good. There's no wrathful, mean God sitting on a cloud waiting to throw a lightning bolt down and punish you for something. I'm sorry. If that's your belief, you might want to revisit it. I'm just encouraging you to let that go, because that is not the God of our universe. That is a man-made God. So I used this illustration last week, and Terry came in and she said, that really helped. So I was, last week, and I encourage you to watch last week's talk. I don't think the images showed up very well online, but I was reading a verse from the Tao Te Ching, and I shared it last week, and so you'll have to go find out what it was all about. But it just dawned on me, that's a perfect analogy. God is water. Water is God. We are over 80% water in our human bodies. Our earth is over 80% water. A leaf, a blade of grass. There's water in all things. So if you think about that, it helps to understand that God is everywhere present, just as water. There's no life without water. Have you ever tried to live without water? I mean, even people who do fasting, that's very trendy right now, to fast. You've got to have water. You can do without food, but you can't do without water. So if you think about it this way, you can start anywhere in this diagram and understand that all the water is doing is changing form. It's just a form. It's water in the ocean, and it goes up as a vapor, it evaporates, it becomes a cloud, it comes down in condensation, it might be snow, it might be rain, and then, or could just be transpiration, could just be water that's in the air. But when it comes down, it's still water, it's still God. God is God. We have such a limited perception of God as human beings, but God is universal. God is everywhere present. Omnipresent is the omnis. Omniscient, all-knowing, omnipresent, omnipotent, omnipowerful, omniscient, all-knowing. God is everywhere, all the time. There's no place that God is not. It's just not possible. So if you think about God as water, does that kind of help? It's like, yeah, there's just no place. And so this is how we get to the second principle, that we're an expression of God. So Chuck came up to me afterward the talk last week, and he goes, yeah, and where did you have that reference? I know it from
Butterworth, right?
Yeah, Butterworth, the Discover the Power Within You is a book by Eric Butterworth, and he talks specifically about the ocean and how each wave is an expression of the ocean, each one unique. It might be crashing against a rock, or it could be out there waving in the middle of the ocean. Could come in many different wave forms, could be a big surface wave. It's still the ocean expressing as the wave. That's how we are. We're God, expressing as this human form. Now, I'm not more God than you are. And you are not all of God, and I'm not either. And collectively, we, along with the grass and the birds and everything else, we are God collectively. But there's no one person. Some people believe they are, but surgeons, you want your surgeon to believe that they're God. That's the only time that it's permissible to believe you're like with the one and only. The rest of the time, we share this experience. We are God reflecting back to one another. And so the God is and the I am takes us to the next two. I think. Our thoughts create our experience. Now, how many of you have had this experience in your life where you're thinking something and then all of a sudden, oh, why was I focused on that? That's not what I wanted. But the more you focus on it, you know that you put your attention to. My teacher, Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, says attention, intention, attention, manifestation. It's a simple formula where you put your focus, energy flows where your focus goes. There's another phrase that helps you understand. Where you put your thoughts is where you're creating from. It's the consciousness from which you create. So when you're complaining and you're talking poor mouth about how bad everything is in the world, you're creating. You are literally praying. You're just praying for the opposite of what you want. So you have to know how powerful you are. And of course, prayer and meditation, a lot of people are uncomfortable with prayer. And you know, I pray a little bit differently because I don't use, like I said this last week, in Southern Baptist Sunday School, I went to the same church my entire, all the way up until 18 years old. Yet, when it was time for me to pray in Sunday school, I would freeze up, scared to death that I didn't know the proper salutation. I didn't know how to address God, and I really didn't know how to put my thought together in the middle, and I didn't know how to close it respectfully and properly. Even though I heard it every single week my whole life, I was so insecure and uncomfortable with praying. In unity, we pray affirmatively. We pray knowing that as long as we're putting our focus on the good, we're claiming it as Jesus taught us. So when we speak the words, that's why I love to pray now, because I pray knowing, I pray claiming, I pray from that consciousness that's different. I'm not praying to something outside of me. I'm praying to that which is expressing through me, as me, and as you. So I can pray on your behalf. We can pray collectively. But meditation and prayer is how we align ourselves so that we really understand and we, for lack of a better word, harness that power that is living through us, just as water is in all of our cells, in our body, in our life. There's no separation, just like a fish swims in the ocean. We exist in the presence of God all the time. You can't get away from it. And He's not chasing you, and He's not trying to punish you. There's no he to it. It's a force, an energy in the universe that wants to express. And another water analogy is like if you went to the ocean and you took a bucket or even a tiny teacup and you scooped that water out of the ocean and you had it in a container, just like our human bodies are a container. So the tiny little container contains everything that the whole ocean does. It's just parceled out into a little teacup or a great big bucket. But either way, it's still the ocean. So either way, it's still God. And that God is expressing, this is a real stretch for a lot of people, God is expressing in everyone and everything and every moment, whether we appreciate the person, the circumstance, or what's happening in the world. It's still God. Get that? Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
It's still God. So Jay and I were talking earlier about this phrase that a lot of times I use in workshops that I teach, I am that also. So when you come across something that you don't care for, think to yourself, I am that also. I am also that. I am also that thing which I am thinking negative thoughts about in this moment. If I'm also that, can I give it compassion? If I am also that, can I give it love? Can I give it a little understanding? Because, there's always that part of us. We all have what Carl Jung called the shadow side, that part which we reject. And when we give it love and compassion, we can embrace it as a part of the whole of who we are. We don't have to reject it. When we reject it, we feed it the vibe that feeds it and makes it bigger. The rejection is a negativity. The pushing away is feeding that. It's all about vibe. If you've listened to me very much, we're all about the vibe. The vibe is what you can't exist in the world without putting on a vibration. Everything, a rock has a vibration. It's slower and lower than a human vibration, but as a human being, we can choose that vibration that we want to be emitting. We get up in the morning and we read something positive, and we set our mind straight, and we do our meditation time, or we just say hello to Ray, and your vibration goes up already. And I know Ray, I'm not going to start calling you out. He told me a couple of years ago, You don't need to call me out every day because, you know,
See, we're all just big old gobble of love.
we're all just a big old gob of love. And when you live from that, you will live to be a happy, is it 92 or are you 93 now? Somewhere. A big old gob of love. Who doesn't want to be a big old gob of love? And it sounds a little messy, and that just makes it more fun, right? Because love is messy. Love is messy, not just romantic love. Family love, sibling love. Love is messy because we're here to live from love. So this is the more, if you decide to take this book, The 5 Principles that Reverend Ellen Davenport wrote, it gives you a lot more information, and she doesn't describe it exactly the way I do. But this is how unity's more formal expression. Human beings create their experiences by the activity of their thinking. It's more wordy than we create with our thoughts. I just condensed it down. And then everything in the manifest realm, which means anything that has form, has its beginning in thought. Whether it's your words, first you had to think them. And sometimes it would do us well to rethink them before they come out of our mouth. But a lot of times, you know, we're creating in the moment. But that is form, just like this poem is form. So in Matthew 7:7, it says, "Ask and it will be given you. Search and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened for you." This is an assurance that's been given to us for thousands of years. But how often do we really rely on this? How often do we know that we can knock and we expect the door open? We might have to knock on a number of doors before the one that's meant to open for us. Sometimes as human beings, we're a little misguided, and we want this door to open, and we just keep banging on it. But if we just kind of said, well, that's not working, let me try another door, then a door that's right for you and better can open. I've had this experience in my corporate career over and over and over. I thought, okay, this is the job I want because that's going to take me places, and that door did not open for me, yet a better door opened that gave me more potential for income and more ways to express my intelligence and my abilities to serve in that environment. But you have to accept that if you're knocking on the door and it's not opening, maybe it's not your door. Maybe there's a window. Who knows? You've just got to be in the flow. You've got to know that the universe has your back. God is expressing as you, and there's no moment in time when that's not true. So I love, anybody familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza?
Yeah.
He's written some amazing books, and it's not everybody's cup of tea because he's very mental. But what he's done is started researching and using MRIs and other scans to actually prove how powerful thoughts and your mind really are. So he had an accident. He was a chiropractor, and he had an accident, broke his neck, and he was told he will never walk again. He was face down on a table, not moving from the eyeballs down. And he said, he was told, this is your life. There's nothing more we can do for you. So what did he have that he could work with was his mind. And he mentally began to heal himself. And now he's back to being an athlete. And because I think he was riding a bike or something. He was doing something very physical. But what he taught himself, what he learned, what he expressed as this expression of God that he is teaching people. He's written books, he holds workshops, and what he does, and you can listen to him on YouTube, or you can find him everywhere. But he is going to share with you this particular, he says, thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body. He says it this way, he says, thoughts are electric. So the signal, the vibe, thoughts put out, that's electric. emotions, feelings, which come from the emotions that we choose, feelings are magnetic. That's how he describes it. So when we're vibing, we're putting out those positive thoughts, or we're putting out the negative ones. Either way, you're going to get what you expect, right? You're not, either way, whatever you're putting out there, your vibe is going ahead of you. You know that we're energy. We have energy fields around us. We have subtle energy fields. And I learned this in corporate a long time ago. If I sat down before a meeting, especially if it was going to be challenging, and I imagined, and the language that I used back then was, I would send Jesus ahead of me to make the crooked places straight, because that's very biblical. But it was something I could envision. I would envision the meeting room. I would envision it being filled with light. I would send good vibes into the room ahead of me, because you can do that. So if you're having a surgery, if you're having a difficult conversation, you can affect change in the world because you are radiating all of the time. But you get to choose what and how you radiate. So we want to show you a quick video. Josh, if you have that ready. So Bruce Lipton, he and Greg Braden and Joe Dispenza often do workshops together because they're saying the same thing. There is scientific proof for what we consider to be spiritual. It's not. So, I mean, it is spiritual for those of us who consider ourselves spiritual. But that's why I'm saying to learn these principles, it doesn't matter what your belief system is. These are universal truths about who we are as human beings in this world. And we can learn to be a cooperative expression and have our lives the way we want them. We're not a victim flailing around unless mentally we believe that we are. We, as expressions of God, can change our lives. We can change our relationships. We can change ourselves, our human body. So let's listen to Bruce.
Coherence means it's all lined up together, and incoherence is energy is just dissipated. So just to give you an idea of what's the difference between coherence and incoherence, if you take a 10-watt light bulb and turn it on, you're going to get a glow out of that light bulb. It's not going to be white light, actually be sort of more orangey yellow because it's not very high voltage, it's a low voltage. And I go, wow, so you can barely read, a book under that 10-watt light bulb. But then here's what. In a laser, you take those energy units, those photons, and instead of just like dispersing them randomly like a light bulb, the photons are going off in all directions simultaneously. But I said, what if you make it coherent? Oh, that's called a laser, where all the photons are now streaming down in a narrow beam. And I say, if you take a 10-watt light bulb and make it coherent and make it into a laser beam, so all the photons, instead of randomly being dispersed, are all going down in a narrow beam, a 10-watt light bulb, the 10 watts in the laser will burn a hole in your wall. It is so powerful that it'll melt your wall right in front of you. 10 watts. And I go, wow, the same 10 watts that I could barely read by. And I say, yeah. Now I say, now put that in the body. I say, why is it relevant? If my energy, my chi, isn't really totally organized, it's like a 10-watt light bulb. I'm hardly lighting up anything with my energy. But if I learn how to exercise, it's really an exercise of causing flow in the body, the flow of the energy. And the more you practice, the more it becomes coherent. And I say, what's the relevance about that? If you can mobilize this energy and make it coherent, my God, you become super powerful. And this is where all that, Asian martial arts stuff comes from, is being able to focus the energy and using it to empower. And healers can do this by using their hands, but focusing their energy, their chi. They can bring their hands up and put energy into a system, just like lasers, and heal somebody with that energy. okay? Or in martial arts, you can use that energy to ward off an attack. And so the point about it is this: why are you doing the exercises? The answer is to enhance your power. And I say, how do you enhance your power? Because you start to be able to control the flow of energy and take it from an incoherent state, which has little power. But by making the flow and controlling it, then it's like controlling a stream of energy. And that's where the power comes from, the power in martial arts fighting, but the same power can be used not just for fighting, but for healing. And that's the power of what's going on through the hands of the healer, because out of the palms is a port where the energy running through your body can be elicited through your hands. And this is the result of empowering yourself by controlling the energy. And the difference between
Empowering yourself by controlling the energy. You do that with the focus of your mind. You can do that with setting your intentions and knowing who you are as an expression of God. So he was talking about coherence, and if you want to learn more about coherence, you can go on the HeartMath Institute website, and they've got a lot of meditations. Sometimes we'll do a meditation where we move from your head to your heart, and we put it out into the world. We get that coherence, and they even have tools where you can measure coherence. You can hook yourself up to electrodes, and you can see when you're in coherence. But basically, when you are thinking thoughts that are love, joy, any of the higher vibrations, you bring yourself into coherence with that which you are, which is an expression of God. Uh-oh, it's not moving forward. Can we go back on the slides, Josh? There we go. Oops, back. Okay, so Eric Butterworth sort of warns you. You get what you expect, not what you ask for. So you might say, I want this, I need that, but you expect everything to go wrong. It's going to go sideways for sure. You rarely get something that you don't expect. So if you expect good, you get good. That's how it works. So if you're praying, so in Unity we use the phrase, every thought and every word is a prayer. This is so true. In the Bible it says, pray without ceasing. You can't choose to pray without ceasing. You are always praying. You can never stop praying. So whatever it is that you're expressing with your thoughts or your words is a prayer to the universe, to that energy force, that expression called God. Jesus called it Abba. We sort of humanize God in such a way, and we use the word Father and phrases like that that seem to separate. But as I mentioned last week, Jesus said, the Father and I are one. We're not two beings. You're not separate from that which we know as God. So in Mark 11:24, it says, so I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. So don't pray, oh, please, please, please. That's contracting your energy. Oh, no, don't let it fall down. Don't let bad things happen. You pray knowing, that's expansive. Pray claiming, that's expansive. Pray knowing that it's done. You have to first believe it. I was meeting with a former colleague from my corporate days yesterday, and we were having lunch, and we were talking about something, and he said, oh, that prosperity prayer stuff, which I could tell he was thinking that, the people who say, believe and receive, and like that's it. And they don't really understand the full consciousness that's required. It is true, believe and receive, but you have to be really aware of what it is you truly believe, because you are a powerful expression of God. So we really have to know, what do we believe? Do we believe we're worthy? Do we believe that we're less than? Do we believe, what's that core belief that you're carrying forward with you in all of this magnificence and all of this expression of God that you are. You're not all of God, but God is all of you. And that's the power that's in truth. So Disvinda also says we can reprogram our brains to be a map of the future instead of a record of the past. Now, I know someone in my life, I'm not going to name them in particular, they don't live here, so don't try to guess, but they've been divorced for more than 10 years. But frequently, we'll start beating the drum of this person that they're divorced from, and what they're doing, and what they're saying, and what they said back then, and and I just go, stop, hey, hang on, that was 10 years ago. You know, there's a little story about two Buddhist monks who are walking along. You all know this one, I've told it many times, but it's very effective in this whole thought process. The two monks come upon a river that you could walk across, but there's a lady there in a beautiful gown, and she's standing there, and she said, I can't get across the river because it'll ruin my dress, and I'm going to something. And so the young monk, still learning, said, well, I would love to help you, but I've taken vows, and so I can't, pick you up, I can't touch a woman, so, good luck. And the older monk just lifted her up and carried her across and put her down, and the two monks continued on, and the younger monk was just like seething, steaming, walking along, his steps got heavier and heavier, and finally he just turned to the older monk and he said, I can't believe you did that. You picked that lady up, you touched a woman, you carried her across the river. Why would you do that? And the older monk looked at him and he just simply said, I put her down 5 miles back. Why can't you? So let's just put it down, whatever it is that we're carrying around with us that's not serving us. Whether it's shame, whether it's guilt, whatever it is that's heavy on you, that's keeping you from feeling your divinity, let it go. Do your forgiveness work for yourself or for others. You can have a future by leaving your past behind, but you can't drag your past along with you and still have a future. You're just recreating the same past over and over. And we've all done that. Everybody in this room has done that. Come on. So, God is absolute good, everywhere present. That's the first principle. The second one is I am. We are all an expression of God. The next two, our thoughts create. Our thoughts create. That's really all you need to know. I think, our thoughts create. And I pray. Prayer meditation helps me know who I am. It reminds me. When you can get still, and I know if you're not a meditator, if you're not a prayer, it feels like a big leap to sit down every day. You can start with 2 minutes. You don't have to start trying to do 20 minutes. Just sit down and come together with your breath. Just be still and allow yourself, as Bruce Lipton said, coherence with the divine. Get into coherence with who you truly are so that you can know. And next week we'll finish up this series because, by the way, I'll be on vacation after next week. I'm going sailing for a couple of weeks. And so Norma will speak on the 25th, and then we'll have a couple of guest speakers. Next week we'll have a little flyer so that you can see who's coming up and you can plan to be here for them. But we'll talk next week about I do. Basically, we've got to put it into action. We can sit around and we can talk about spiritual principle all day long, but if we're not living it, forget about it. You're not proving anything to anybody if you can just talk about it, but you're not willing to put it into practice in your life on some degree, to some level in your life. So, the 5 basic principles, again, God is, I am, I think, I pray, I do. God is, I am, I think, I pray, I do. We can all do that. We can remember who we are in this world with the 5 principles, which I like to call a formula for transformation. Because when you get a grip on those 5 principles, There's nothing that you can't change in your life and in your world. So this is the book, if you are interested, The 5 Principles by Reverend Ellen Davenport. So this week, for those of you who are new, but you've been watching online, so you know I give a weekly practice. It's optional, of course, I'm not checking homework. But I like for you to try it and experiment, and then email me at minister@unityhillcountry.org. Try this week. Prayer for others, as Gabe Smith read in the Daily Word earlier. Quiet your mind and connect. Get in coherence with that greatness that is in you and as you. And put your focus on prayer for yourself, pray for others. Put some prayer energy towards something this week so that you can demonstrate to yourself that you understand this truth. Be willing to activate a prayer life. And expect good. As Eric Butterworth said, you get what you expect. Thank you all.